The moment my boss, Quinlan Thorpe, put me on speakerphone in front of the entire sales department to fire me, I knew he'd made the biggest mistake of his career. What he didn't know was that I'd been recording every conversation we'd had for the past 6 months, including the one where he called me the best closer this company has ever seen, and begged me not to quit. By the time I finished playing back his own words, he wasn't just humiliated. He was explaining to corporate why his top performer had just exposed him as a pathological liar in front of 23 witnesses. My name is Valencia, and I've been in pharmaceutical sales for 7 years. The last 4 of those were spent at Medicor Dynamics, a mid-sized company that distributed specialty medications to hospitals and specialty clinics across the Southeast. When I started there, I was hungry, ambitious, and naively believed that hard work and results would speak for themselves. By the time Quinlan fired me, I had learned that sometimes the loudest voice in the room belongs to the person with the least to say. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because this story isn't just about getting fired. It's about what happens when someone systematically tries to destroy your reputation, and you have the receipts to prove they're lying. I joined Medicor Dynamics 4 years ago as a regional sales representative covering hospitals in Georgia and South Carolina. The company specialized in hard-to-source medications, drugs for rare diseases, specialized cancer treatments, emergency medications that most distributors couldn't or wouldn't handle. It was challenging work that required building relationships with doctors, navigating complex insurance protocols, and understanding medical applications that most sales reps never had to learn. I was good at it. Really good. My first year, I exceeded my quota by 38%. My second year, I brought in $2.7 million in new business and earned the company's President's Club award. By my third year, I was managing the largest territory in the Southeast and training new hires on complex product lines. But my success apparently made some people uncomfortable, including Quinlan Thorpe, who was promoted to regional sales director about 18 months ago. Quinlan came to Medicor from a larger pharmaceutical company where he'd been a mid-level manager for 8 years. He had an MBA, a firm handshake, and absolutely no experience with the specialized medications that were our bread and butter. But he interviewed well, talked a good game about scaling operations and optimizing performance metrics, and convinced upper management that he could take our division to the next level. His first week on the job, Quinlan scheduled individual meetings with every member of the sales team. When my turn came, I walked into the conference room expecting a standard getting-to-know-you conversation. Instead, I got a lecture about teamwork and the importance of supporting new leadership. "Valencia," he said, leaning back in his chair with the confidence of someone who had never doubted his own authority. "I've been reviewing your numbers, and obviously you're a strong performer, but I want to make sure we're all aligned on department goals and individual expectations." I nodded, waiting for him to get to his point. "The thing is," he continued, "when one person consistently outperforms their colleagues, it can create an unbalanced dynamic. It makes other team members feel inadequate, and it puts pressure on management to justify why some people are succeeding while others are struggling." I kept my expression neutral, but internally I was baffled. "Are you saying that exceeding quota is a problem?" "I'm saying that sustainable success is about consistent team performance, not individual heroics. Moving forward, I want to see more collaboration, more knowledge sharing, more focus on lifting up the entire department rather than personal achievement." This was my first indication that Quinlan fundamentally misunderstood how pharmaceutical sales worked. We weren't a team sport where everyone could contribute equally to a shared goal. We were individual contributors with specific territories, specific clients, and specific revenue targets. My success didn't take anything away from my colleagues. It demonstrated what was possible with the right approach and consistent effort. But I was still trying to be diplomatic. "I'm definitely open to sharing strategies and helping with training," I said. "I actually enjoy mentoring new reps and talking through complex sales situations." "That's great to hear," Quinlan said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "I think you'll find that this role has a lot more growth potential when you focus on team success instead of individual recognition." Over the next few months, Quinlan implemented a series of changes that seemed designed to diminish my influence and redistribute my success among the broader team. He created new team-based incentive structures that rewarded collective performance over individual achievement. He instituted mandatory collaboration meetings where high performers were expected to share their strategies and client insights with struggling reps. He established new reporting requirements that gave him visibility into every aspect of my sales process. At first, I thought these changes were just typical new manager syndrome, someone trying to make their mark by fixing things that weren't broken. But as the weeks went by, it became clear that Quinlan's focus was specifically on managing me down, rather than building the team up. He started questioning my client relationships, suggesting that my success was due to inherited accounts rather than sales skill. He criticized my approach to new business development, arguing that I was too focused on high-value deals instead of building a broader customer base. He implemented new approval processes that required his sign-off on any deal over $50,000, effectively giving him veto power over my largest opportunities. The breaking point came 6 months ago, when I landed the largest deal in company history. Meridian Health Systems was a regional hospital network that had been sourcing specialty medications from 3 different distributors, resulting in inconsistent pricing, complicated logistics, and frequent supply chain disruptions. I had been building a relationship with their chief pharmacy officer, Dr. Amara Okafor, for over a year, understanding their needs, demonstrating our capabilities, and developing a comprehensive solution that would consolidate their entire specialty medication program under Medicor's management. The deal was worth $4.2 million annually, with a 3-year contract and built-in escalation clauses. It would have increased our regional revenue by 18% and established Medicor as the premier specialty distributor in the Southeast. It was the kind of transformative account that career reputations are built on. I submitted the proposal to Quinlan for approval, expecting congratulations and maybe some recognition for landing such a significant opportunity. Instead, he called me into his office and told me he had concerns about the deal structure. "Valencia," he said, "this Meridian proposal is impressive, but I think we need to approach it differently. The pricing seems aggressive, the service commitments are extensive, and I'm not sure we can deliver on everything you've promised." I stared at him. "Quinlan, I've been working on this deal for 14 months. I know their requirements. I've confirmed our capabilities with operations, and I've built the pricing model based on our actual costs and margins. This deal is not only achievable, it's profitable. I'm sure you've done your homework," he said, "but I have a broader perspective on our operational capacity and strategic priorities. I think we should submit a modified proposal that's more conservative in scope and more realistic in terms of our service commitments." "Modified how?" He pulled out a marked-up version of my proposal. He had reduced the product range by 40%, increased pricing by 15%, and eliminated most of the value-added services that had convinced Meridian to consider switching distributors in the first place. "This approach is more sustainable," he explained. "It protects our margins, reduces our risk exposure, and ensures we can deliver on our commitments." I looked at his modifications and felt sick. "Quinlan, these changes eliminate everything that differentiates us from their current distributors. If we submit this proposal, we won't just lose the deal. We'll lose credibility with the entire health system." "I think you're being overly dramatic," he said. "Good clients will appreciate a realistic approach over unrealistic promises. Good clients will choose vendors who solve their problems over vendors who protect their own margins," I replied. "Dr. Okafor specifically told me that they're tired of distributors who underpromise and underdeliver. They want a partner who can handle complexity, not a vendor who runs from it." Quinlan's expression hardened. "Valencia, I'm going to need you to submit the revised proposal. That's not a request. And if I refuse, then I'll submit it myself, and we'll have a conversation about whether you're aligned with this department's strategic direction." I left his office with a choice: submit a proposal I knew would fail, or refuse a direct order and face the consequences. I chose a third option. I called Dr. Okafor and explained that there might be some modifications to our proposal, and asked if we could schedule a meeting to discuss their priorities before submitting anything formal. During that conversation, Dr. Okafor made it clear that Meridian's requirements were non-negotiable. They needed comprehensive product coverage, competitive pricing, and enhanced service levels. Any proposal that didn't meet those criteria would be immediately disqualified. I documented that conversation and submitted Quinlan's modified proposal, along with a detailed memo explaining why it would fail and what the consequences would be for our relationship with Meridian. I sent copies to him, to our divisional director, and to the company's VP of sales. 2 weeks later, Meridian rejected our proposal exactly as I had predicted. Dr. Okafor called me personally to express her disappointment and to let me know that Medicor would not be considered for future opportunities with their health system. Quinlan blamed me for the failure. He told upper management that I had damaged the relationship by overselling our capabilities and creating unrealistic expectations. He suggested that my aggressive sales approach was causing problems with multiple clients and that I needed closer supervision to ensure I stayed within appropriate boundaries. That's when I started recording our conversations. I live in Georgia, which is a one-party consent state, meaning I can legally record any conversation I'm part of without informing the other participants. I started using a recording app on my phone during every meeting with Quinlan, every performance review, every discussion about deals or strategy or department direction. What I captured over the next 6 months was a pattern of contradictory statements, false accusations, and systematic attempts to undermine my credibility and damage my relationships with both colleagues and clients. In March, I recorded a conversation where Quinlan told me I was the most talented sales professional he'd ever worked with, and that he was counting on me to carry this department while he got the newer reps up to speed. In April, he told the divisional director that I was difficult to manage and had an inflated sense of my own importance that was affecting team morale. In May, I recorded him asking me to take over training responsibilities for 2 new hires because nobody understands our complex product lines better than you do. In June, he submitted a performance review stating that I had knowledge gaps in key product areas and needed additional training to meet current industry standards. The contradictions were so blatant, so obviously dishonest, that I started to wonder if Quinlan actually believed his own lies, or if he was consciously constructing a false narrative to justify whatever he was planning to do with me. I got my answer last Tuesday morning. I was in the office early, preparing for a client presentation, when Quinlan arrived and asked me to join him in the conference room. This wasn't unusual. We had weekly one-on-ones to discuss pipeline updates and deal progress. "Valencia," he said, settling into his chair with a stack of papers. "I've been doing some analysis of Q3 performance, and I want to talk about your numbers." I pulled out my laptop, ready to review whatever metrics he wanted to discuss. "Okay, what specifically are you looking at? Your conversion rates, your average deal size, your client retention numbers. Across the board, I'm seeing performance that's significantly below department standards." I stared at him. "Quinlan, I'm leading the region in every major category. My conversion rate is 18% above the department average. My average deal size is 37% higher than last year, and I haven't lost a single existing client in 8 months. I think you're looking at different numbers than I am," he said, spreading out printouts that supposedly showed my performance metrics. "According to my analysis, you're underperforming in several key areas." I looked at his papers. The numbers were completely fabricated. My actual conversion rate was 73%. His chart showed 41%. My YTD revenue was $2.1 million. His chart showed $1.4 million. Every metric had been altered to make me look like a failing sales rep. "Quinlan, these numbers aren't accurate. Where did you get this data?" "I pulled it directly from our CRM system," he said. "I think the problem is that you've been so focused on individual achievement that you haven't been paying attention to how your performance actually compares to expectations." I opened my laptop and logged into our sales tracking system. "Let me show you the actual numbers," I said, turning the screen toward him. He barely glanced at it. "Valencia, I think we need to discuss whether this role is still a good fit for your skills and career goals." That's when I realized what was happening. Quinlan wasn't trying to manage my performance or correct my behavior. He was building a case to fire me, and he was using fabricated data to justify it. "Are you firing me?" I asked. "I'm suggesting that we might both benefit from exploring other opportunities," he said. "I've spoken with HR about potential transition options, and I think we can find a solution that works for everyone." I looked at him sitting across the conference table, calm and confident, probably thinking he was handling a difficult personnel situation with professional discretion. He had no idea that I had 6 months of recorded conversations proving that everything he was saying was a lie. "I'd like to think about this over the weekend," I said. "Can we continue this conversation on Monday?" "Of course," he said. "Take all the time you need." I walked out of that meeting knowing that Quinlan was planning to fire me, but I still had 3 days to prepare my defense. I spent the weekend organizing my recorded conversations, documenting my actual performance metrics, and researching my legal options. Monday morning, I arrived at the office expecting another private conversation about my future with the company. Instead, I found the entire sales team gathered in the conference room for what Quinlan announced was an impromptu department meeting. "Good morning, everyone," he said, standing at the head of the table with the same stack of fabricated performance reports he'd shown me on Friday. "I wanted to bring everyone together to discuss some important changes in our team structure and personnel assignments." I took a seat at the far end of the table, surrounded by 22 colleagues who had no idea they were about to witness my public execution. "As you know," Quinlan continued, "we've been working hard to optimize our sales processes and ensure that everyone on this team is positioned for success. Unfortunately, that sometimes means making difficult decisions about team composition and individual role assignments." I felt my stomach drop. He was really going to do this in front of everyone. "Valencia," he said, looking directly at me, "I'd like to discuss your performance metrics with the team, since your situation illustrates some important lessons about maintaining professional standards and meeting departmental expectations." He activated the speakerphone in the center of the conference table and dialed a number. "I've asked Gloria from HR to join us for this conversation," he explained to the room. Gloria's voice came through the speaker. "Good morning, everyone." "Quinlan, you mentioned you wanted to discuss a personnel matter?" "That's right," Quinlan said. "I've been reviewing Valencia Chen's performance over the past several quarters, and I have some significant concerns that I think the team should be aware of." He started reading from his fabricated reports, describing me as an underperforming sales rep who had been resistant to coaching, difficult to manage, and consistently unable to meet basic performance standards. According to Quinlan's narrative, I was a problem employee who had been given multiple opportunities to improve, but had failed to demonstrate the professional capabilities required for the position. Around the table, my colleagues were staring in confusion and disbelief. These were people who had worked with me for years, who knew my track record, who had seen me close deals and train new hires and solve complex problems. What Quinlan was describing bore no resemblance to the person they knew. "Based on these performance issues," Quinlan said, building toward his conclusion, "we've made the decision to terminate Valencia's employment with Medicor Dynamics, effective immediately." The room was dead silent. 22 people sitting around a conference table, listening to their colleague get fired over speakerphone based on lies and fabricated data. "Valencia," Gloria's voice came through the speaker. "Quinlan has documented a pattern of performance issues that leave us no choice but to end your employment. We'll coordinate with you regarding final paperwork and transition details." That's when I decided I'd heard enough. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the conference room's audio system, and pressed play on a recording I'd made just 6 weeks earlier. Quinlan's own voice filled the room. "Valencia, I want to be completely honest with you. You're the best closer this company has ever seen. Your conversion rates are off the charts, your client relationships are rock solid, and frankly, I don't know how this department would function without you." The silence was absolute. Every person in that room was staring at the speakerphone, then at Quinlan, then back at the speakerphone. I let the recording continue. "I know I've been pushing you pretty hard lately, but it's only because I'm under pressure from corporate to show growth numbers, and you're the only rep I can count on to deliver consistently. I need you to stay focused and keep closing deals while I figure out how to get the rest of the team up to your level." Quinlan's face had gone completely white. "Valencia, what?" I played another clip. "Between you and me, some of the other reps have been complaining that you make them look bad. But that's their problem, not yours. I've told corporate that you're carrying this region, and I need you to keep doing exactly what you're doing." "Where did you get these recordings?" Quinlan demanded. "From our weekly one-on-one meetings," I said calmly. "The ones where you told me I was indispensable to this department." I played a third clip. "Valencia, I'm going to need you to take over the Morrison account. Janet's been struggling with it for 6 months, and we can't afford to lose that business. You're the only one with the expertise to turn it around." This was followed immediately by a recording from the previous week. "Valencia, your performance on the Morrison account has been disappointing. You haven't demonstrated the strategic thinking or client management skills that we expect from senior sales professionals. The same account, the same situation, completely contradictory assessments just 3 weeks apart. How many of these do you have? Gloria's voice came through the speakerphone. 6 months worth, I said. Every meeting, every performance review, every conversation about my capabilities and my value to this company. Would you like to hear more? I played another clip. Valencia, I'm recommending you for the President's Club again this year. Your numbers are incredible, and you've become the standard that everyone else aspires to reach. Followed by, Valencia, your recent performance suggests that you may have plateaued in this role. I'm concerned that you're no longer growing or developing the skills necessary for advancement. By this point, several of my colleagues were openly shaking their heads. A few were taking notes. One person, I think it was Marcus from the Atlanta territory, was recording the playback with his own phone. Quinlan, Gloria's voice was sharp now. Can you explain these discrepancies? These recordings are taken out of context, he stammered. They don't represent the full scope of my interactions with Valencia or my assessment of her overall performance. Really? I said, playing another clip. Valencia, you're irreplaceable. I hope you know that. This company would be lost without your expertise and your client relationships. Then, Valencia, we're going to have to discuss whether this position is still aligned with your skill set and career objectives. Out of context how? I asked. Quinlan was sweating now, looking around the room at faces that ranged from confused to disgusted to openly hostile. Valencia, this is highly inappropriate. You can't record private conversations without consent. Actually, I said, in Georgia, I can record any conversation I'm a party to without informing other participants. One-party consent law. I looked it up. I played one final clip. Valencia, I want you to know that I consider you a personal friend as well as a valued colleague. I respect your integrity, your work ethic, and your commitment to this company. I hope we'll be working together for many years to come. The recording was from just 4 days earlier. So, I said, looking directly at Quinlan, which version is true? Am I the best closer you've ever seen? Or am I an underperforming problem employee who needs to be terminated? The conference room was completely silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. 22 sales professionals, 1 HR director on speakerphone, and 1 regional manager who had just been exposed as a pathological liar. Gloria's voice broke the silence. Quinlan, I think you and I need to have an immediate conversation. Valencia, please don't leave the building. I'll be calling you within the hour. The speakerphone went dead. Quinlan looked around the room, opened his mouth as if to say something, then closed it again. He gathered his fabricated performance reports and walked out without another word. As soon as he was gone, the room erupted. My colleagues were talking over each other, expressing disbelief, anger, and support. Marcus came over and showed me his phone. He had recorded my entire playback session and was already uploading it to his cloud storage. Valencia, said Priscilla from the Charleston territory, I cannot believe what just happened. How long has he been lying about your performance? 6 months of documented lies, I said. Maybe longer, but that's all I have recordings for. This is insane, said Derek from the Augusta territory. We all know you're the top performer in this region. We've all seen your numbers. How did he think he was going to get away with this? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a call from Gloria in HR. I answered it immediately. Valencia, I need you to come to my office right now. Bring any documentation you have related to your performance and your interactions with Quinlan. This situation is completely unacceptable, and we need to address it immediately. The conversation with Gloria lasted 3 hours. I played every recording I had made, showed her my actual performance metrics, and documented the pattern of contradictory statements and false accusations that Quinlan had been building for months. What I learned during that meeting was that I wasn't the first person Quinlan had treated this way. 2 other high-performing reps had left the company over the past year rather than continue working under his management. But they had been too professional, or too afraid, to document his behavior or make formal complaints. Valencia, Gloria said near the end of our conversation, I want to apologize on behalf of Medicore Dynamics. What you've experienced is completely contrary to our company values and our commitment to supporting high-performing employees. Quinlan's conduct is unacceptable, and there will be consequences. She offered me Quinlan's position that same day. regional sales director, with a 35% salary increase, oversight of the entire Southeast Division, and complete authority over hiring, performance management, and strategic planning. She also offered to provide references and recommendations if I preferred to pursue opportunities with other companies, acknowledging that Medicor might not be able to recover from the damage Quinlan had done to our departmental culture. I asked for 48 hours to consider the offer. That evening, I sat in my apartment, playing back the events of the day. I had been publicly humiliated, privately vindicated, and offered a promotion all within the span of 8 hours. My phone was buzzing constantly with messages from colleagues, congratulations from friends, and even a few inquiries from recruiters who had somehow heard about the conference room showdown. But what struck me most was a text message from Derek. Valencia, what you did today took more courage than any of us have ever shown. You didn't just defend yourself. You showed all of us that we don't have to accept being lied about or pushed around by bad managers. Another message came from Priscilla. I've been keeping my own notes about some of Quinlan's comments to me. After seeing what you did, I think it's time I talked to HR about a few things too. That's when I realized my decision wasn't just about my own career. It was about the kind of workplace I wanted to be part of creating. I called Gloria the next morning and accepted the regional sales director position. Quinlan was terminated that afternoon. Not in a conference room full of witnesses, but in a private meeting with corporate executives who had flown in from headquarters to conduct their own investigation. His access to company systems was revoked immediately. His company car was repossessed, and his LinkedIn profile now lists him as exploring new opportunities in sales management. The fabricated performance reports he had created were discovered on his computer, along with draft versions that showed even more extensive falsification of metrics for other team members. It turned out he had been systematically documenting false performance issues for anyone he perceived as a threat to his authority. As for me, I've been regional sales director for 5 months now. I've implemented new policies around performance documentation and personnel decisions. I've created transparent metrics reporting that makes it impossible for managers to falsify data. I've established regular one-on-one sessions with every rep to ensure open communication and early identification of any management issues. Our regional revenue is up 28% since I took over. We've added 6 new team members, landed 12 major accounts, and haven't had a single person quit since Quinlan's departure. Most importantly, we've built a culture where performance is measured accurately, feedback is given honestly, and nobody gets fired based on lies and fabricated data. But the most satisfying part isn't the business success or the management recognition. It's the knowledge that when someone tried to destroy my reputation with systematic lies, I had the evidence to prove they were wrong and the courage to use it. The recording of that conference room confrontation has been shared throughout the pharmaceutical sales industry as an example of toxic management and the importance of documenting workplace interactions. I've received dozens of messages from other sales professionals who have used my experience as inspiration to start recording their own conversations with problematic managers. Some people have asked me if I feel bad about ending Quinlan's career, if I think I should have handled the situation more privately or given him a chance to resign quietly. But here's what I've learned. When someone builds their management strategy on lies and manipulation, they forfeit the right to professional courtesy. When someone tries to fire you based on fabricated evidence in front of your colleagues, they've chosen public humiliation as their weapon, and they should be prepared for public exposure of their dishonesty. I spent 6 months enduring systematic lies and character assassination while believing that superior performance and professional behavior would eventually win out. It took getting fired over speakerphone to realize that sometimes the most professional thing you can do is make sure the truth gets heard, no matter how uncomfortable it makes people. 5 months later, Medicor's Southeast Division is thriving under my leadership. We solve real problems for healthcare providers. We support our team members with honest feedback and genuine development opportunities. And we measure success based on actual performance rather than political maneuvering. And Quinlan? Last I heard, he was interviewing for sales management positions at smaller companies, probably telling them about his successful track record of building high-performing teams and optimizing departmental performance. The difference is, now at least 23 people know exactly what his leadership style actually looks like when it's exposed to the light, and some of them recorded it for posterity.